So I had a very long introduction for Anita because she's done so much and seems to have still quite a lot of job titles. I'm going to
It's
try
a
and
sign of
cut these
age,
down.
so
She started her career in spacecraft design at Airbus, right? Great.
yeah.
She's also now works at MDA Space UK, a company with geointelligence, satellite systems, and robotics as part of its portfolio. And if that wasn't enough, she's an honorary group captain in the Royal Air Force 601 Squadron. So
I'm a reservist in the Air Force.
quite impressive.
Thank
Anita,
you.
we're here to talk about adapting revenue models for evolving space economy, right? No, that's right. So just before we do that, let's hear a bit about MDA Space. It's a Canadian company. You run the UK
I do.
the sort of
Yes.
iteration of it. Tell us what MDA Space is so that we can all get the sort of same background on it.
So MDA Space, I need to clarify, up until about March time, we were MDA. And we recently did a rebrand, and I'll use that as a little bit of a segue into talking about what it is we do and what our impact is on the space ecosystem. We're a 55 plus year space organization with a history and heritage in mission first across a range of different capabilities, and I'll touch on some of those in a minute. We went through a different a number of ownership structures over the past few years, and we went to be an American company for a while, and we acquired SSL and then Digital Globe, and we became Maxar. And then Maxar divested us out, and we became a Canadian company again in 2020. We then floated. We did our IPO in 2021. And since then, we have been on this trajectory to make some really strong strategic decisions about the direction we want to take the business in. And that's what's led us to become MDA Space rather than MDA. We are now a pure play space player. And that's something that wasn't really possible until recently. And that's come about because of the increasing commercialization of space. For a while, we wanted to focus on space, but there wasn't really enough business in just the space industry for that to be sustainable. And so we had things we were doing in defense, nuclear, medical, a whole range of different things that we were using our technology for and leveraging our technology for to keep the business going. What we've seen over the past few years is this evolution to a much more commercially sustainable industry. And that's meant that we've had the opportunity to focus more on space. And so we want space to be in our title. It's our identity. We're building momentum around that. And the areas that we build momentum in are in 3 business areas. So we have our geointelligence business, which is all about Earth observation and also space observation. And we fly SAR satellites. We're currently flying RadarSat-2, and we are now working on our next generation C-band SAR satellite. And this is all around maritime domain awareness. And in terms of, just to give you a sense of scale, Chorus, which is our next generation SAR constellation, has a swath width of 700 kilometers, and that's from here to Valencia, and that's just the width. And so it's able to hoover up vast expanses of the Earth's surface so that we can determine and detect what's going on the Earth's surface, tip and cue, a follower satellite that can go in and zoom in and get much more detail. Then we have our satellite systems business. We manufacture full spacecraft, digital satellites that are being used to implement some of the newer constellations that are coming through now, Global Star being our first one and Telesat Lightspeed being another. And that's focusing on these next generation technologies that are driving the connectivity around the world, where everything needs to be connected to everything else. I'm going to show my age here now. You know, I remember when I was a teenager, we would have one communications device in the house. It was one telephone. It was in the hallway, and everyone used it.
Attach the wall.
Attach the wall.
Imagine.
That's where you went to make a call, and that's how everybody lived. And now everybody has a device. We're all engaging mobility solutions. And so the communications satellites that we're building are providing broadband, machine to machine, Internet of Things, direct to device, all of those scenarios where you want things to talk to other things. We've got capabilities there. And then we have a robotics and space operations business, and this is all around infrastructure in space. We've got a strong history and heritage in space robotics that are being used on the International Space Station, previously hundreds of missions on the space shuttle, and now we're building Canadarm3, which is going to help to build and maintain the Lunar Gateway. So that's a little bit about what we do and why we've gone through this rebrand and refocus on pure play space.
That's a really good backgrounder. Thank you so much for that. And it gives us lots of jumping off points for questions. And I guess the largest one, which I think is relevant to the title of this talk, this conversation, is about how do companies that want to use the services that you're building, the infrastructure that you're building, how do they start to think about space, think about the fact that it used to be very expensive, well, it's still relatively expensive, but it's getting cheaper. So how do you drive down the cost of getting missions that you want to get into space?
Yeah, and this really starts with our first value about putting the customer mission first. It's all around how can we close the business cases for our customers. Launch is a key part of that. That was the thing that really helped to kickstart this commercial drive. I remember when I was working at SSTL in the 90s, we were borrowing and stealing to kind of get an opportunistic launch off the side of off a NASA rocket. Now launch is ubiquitous, and at the time it was $20,000, maybe $30,000 per kilogram. Now shave a zero off of that, another zero off of that in the coming few years as well. So that's a key enabler. And then some of the other things are around how we drive down the cost of the actual spacecraft and the space systems. And that's driven by higher volume production. And that's something that we are strongly focused on within MDA Space, within our commercial constellation business. So increased volume, and that drives the investment in high volume production. And so there's advantages of automation, 3D printing, which enables you to have fewer parts and fewer things you have to bolt together, which saves you time. And high volume production drives you towards having economies of scale as well. So we have a very large supply chain that's supporting us as well. And we have purchase power, and that helps to drive things. And then there's the piece around how you actually build the architecture around it, and thinking quite pragmatically about the entire system and where you can focus on to try and achieve some of those gains. So we don't just think about the technology, we think about how our customers want to engage with us. And increasingly, they're looking at not wanting to buy assets, but procure the data as well. And so we're configuring ourselves to be able to do that, and not just sell a spacecraft, although we're very good at that. We're very good at priming. We always have been. We will deliver a spacecraft, but we can also deliver the data that's generated and the products that are generated by the spacecraft, and our customers can buy those as well.
Just on the cost, just one more point on that. When you're talking about all the developments you're making and the not only in the technology itself, but you're also putting stuff together, putting architectures together. There's also then you're buying launches, which are also getting cheaper and elsewhere. How much of the development and the R&D do you do yourself, and how much are you sort of buying in and taking advantage of the fact that just because there are lots more rocket companies, it's getting cheaper to do the rocket part of it, so you can leave that to other people? I'm just wondering where you think your particular value is.
Across the value chain, other than launch, we play in every single segment of the space economy. And there's this massive kind of parametric trade-off and trade space that we work in all of our missions. In terms of where we focus, I can't really put my finger on one. It is literally across the board, and it is really on thinking how can we get to market more quickly. That's really important for our customers. Time to money really matters. Also, the cost of our spacecraft really matters. So they're very interested in how we can reduce the non-recurring engineering on our systems. And so that's been driving us towards greater productization. And I think that's really the key thing that's going to do this, like maximize returns to Earth and improve humanity. It's rather than developing exquisite missions, which is where traditionally we've been in the space industry, we're coming up with a portfolio of core products that can be missionized to suit each particular customer's mission needs. And so we have MDA Chorus, which is all around our Earth observation system and the products that we can deliver out of that. We have MDA Aurora, which is our digital satellite product, and then we have MDA SkyMaker, which is leveraging our decades of heritage in in-orbit robotics and making that available and applicable to the commercial space stations that are going to be built. So productization is really important, and that's a big mindset shift for most of our customers who are used to their vendors and their partners coming up with a nice, exquisite solution, but that doesn't get you to close the business case. At the end of the day, it's all about how can you get to market more quickly and how can you do that with as minimum risk as possible. And so that's driving us towards this product.
That's a vast range of products. Even
It
I
is.
see that as a
Yeah.
non-business person. But since you mentioned Aurora, there's a question on the Slido. And feel free to add more questions, by the way. We've got one here, but please do add more from the audience. It's always good to have your questions. The question is, who are your competitors for the Aurora satellite?
So competitors for the satellite itself, where I believe we're in a real world leading position with our digital satellite, where we're first to market. In fact, we already have a digital configurable payload in orbit already that's demonstrating and de-risking our technology for that. And so we're really leading the market in that at the moment. We're very keen that we maintain our lead in that. Everyone else is now had their eyes open to the potential of digital satellites and are seeing that it's possible to develop those technologies and develop those payloads. And so there are lots of fast followers coming up behind us. And so our challenge is to make sure that we continue to innovate. And just touching on the previous question you were asking about our innovation, it's not just happening internally. We're having to make sure that all of our partners in our supply chain are supporting their and investing in their own roadmaps so that as we're going through our cycles of innovation, that they're going to come up alongside us as well.
Another question from the audience. It seems like robotics is a large part of your business model. And you mentioned gateway and lunar applications. What are the future low Earth orbit applications for MDA? And can I just add one bit of something I was going to answer to this as well? You robotics is obviously something you're interested in, and you mentioned a legendary piece of a space history with Canadarm.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
for a person of my age who watched this, the space shuttle launches and all of those things,
Yeah.
Canadarm's like it's a heroic
It's
bit of
iconic.
history. It really is. Canadarm 3, I had no idea it was going to number 3. What is Canadarm 3 doing, and how are you using it to build these satellite constellations?
So shall I answer
Yes,
that bit
yes, please,
first
yeah.
around Leo?
The general robotics theme.
Yes, I could geek out on this, so I'm going to try and keep it brief. So, LEO applications for MDA, they're across the board, and when we think about what you use space for, it's the advantage that that space operating the space domain gives you. So there's space for Earth, which is space for the citizens, space for humanity, and then there's space for space and how you utilize space as a domain in its own right. And in each of our 3 business areas, a lot of that activity is happening in low Earth orbit. Now, we have a strong heritage in space exploration, in going to Mars, in supporting lunar missions, and also the work that's happening on the ISS. So a lot of our activity and our history to date has been in low Earth orbit. What we're doing now is leveraging that to go further, to go out to the moon and help to establish and be part of the economy that's developing there. As for Canadarm, that is part of the Canadians' contribution to the Artemis program and Gateway, and so there are a lot of new developments that are coming in with Canadarm 3, not least the capabilities around autonomy. Someone was talking about the three days to get to the moon from Earth. Gateway isn't going to be permanently crewed, and so a lot of the work on Gateway has to be done autonomously. And so there's a lot more autonomy that's being built into the robotic arm, and it's all built on our already human-rated safety-critical systems that we've been flying on the space shuttle and on the International Space Station for the past few decades.
Is Canadarm being used for other purposes beyond the Gateway itself? Is it building satellite constellations? Are you doing other things with it in lower Earth orbit?
So we're talking with a range of commercial LEO destinations. providers who are looking at building their own space infrastructure in space. It's also got potential, and we're talking to a lot of customers about the potential for in-orbit servicing, for debris removal, for life extension, the potential to use robotics and arms and sensors for proximity operations and for getting up close to other assets and helping to support their maintenance, or in instances helping to clean up space. The possibilities are endless for our robotic systems.
Anita, that's been fascinating. Thank you so much. We've run out of time now, but we're going to talk to you for another hour.
Thank you. No, me
Thank
too.
you so much for that.
Thank you very
Appreciate it.
much.
Take care.